In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and streets buzzed with energy, there was a small but cozy restaurant tucked away on a busy corner. The place wasn't fancy. It had plain wooden tables, dim lighting, and walls. Decorated with old black and white photos of the city, but it had something special. Its people. And among them stood a young woman who carried herself with quiet confidence. She was a waitress, known to her coworkers as someone who could handle anything life threw at her. Her name was Nia, and she worked hard every day to make ends meet. At 28 years old, she'd already seen more than her fair share of struggles. But through it all, she held on to one thing, her values. No matter how tough things got, Nia always believed in treating others with respect and expecting the same in return. That's why, when an arrogant billionaire walked into the restaurant that evening, little did anyone know just how much his presence would test those principles. The night started like any other. People came in groups, laughing and chatting over plates of pasta and glasses of wine. Nia moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing trays laden with food while flashing warm smiles. Her movements were smooth, her voice calm, and her demeanor professional. Customers loved her because she made them feel welcome without being intrusive. Even her boss often said she was the backbone of the team. But then he arrived. He strode. And like he owned the place because, well, technically, he kind of did. This man was no ordinary customer. He was the heir to a massive tech empire worth billions. His family name was plastered across headlines for everything from groundbreaking innovations to scandalous gossip. He was spoiled, entitled, and used to getting whatever he wanted. Tonight, his target happened to be Anaya. At first glance, he seemed harmless enough. Dressed in an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, he slid into a booth near the window and signaled for service. When Nia approached him, notepad in hand, she greeted him politely, asking what he'd like to order. But instead of answering, he leaned back in his seat and looked her up and down, his lips curling into a smirk. "You're new here, aren't you?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. Nia blinked, unfazed. "Nope," she replied evenly. "Just haven't had the pleasure of serving you before." Her response caught him off guard, but only for a moment. He chuckled, clearly amused by her sass. "Well, maybe tonight will change that," he said, leaning forward slightly. "Tell me, do you usually get tips this big?" He pulled out a crisp $100 bill and placed it on the table, letting it sit there like bait. Nia glanced at the money, then back at him. She didn't flinch. "Tips are nice," she said, keeping her tone light, "but I prefer earning them the old-fashioned way by doing my job." For a second, there was silence. Then he laughed again, louder this time. "I like you," he declared, wagging a finger at her. "You've got spunk. Now tell me, what does a girl like you do after work? Maybe we can grab a drink somewhere." That's when Nia felt her stomach tighten. She'd dealt with rude customers before, sure, but this guy was crossing a line. Still, she kept her cool. "Sir," she said firmly, "I'm here to take your order, not discuss my personal life. Is there anything specific you'd like to eat?" His smile faltered. For the first time, he looked irritated. "Come on, don't be like that," he pressed, his voice taking on a sharper edge. "I'm just trying to have some fun. Lighten up." Nia took a deep breath. She knew exactly what kind of game he was playing, and she wasn't about to let him win. "With all due respect," she said, her voice steady, "if you're here to harass me, you're in the wrong place. If you want to stay, I'll happily bring you whatever you'd like to order. Otherwise, I'll need to ask you to leave." The words hung in the air like thunderclouds. The man stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. Did she really just say that? To him? Nobody talked to him like that, not employees, not strangers. not even his own family. Who did she think she was? "I'm serious," Nia added, meeting his gaze head on. There was no fear in her eyes, only determination. You either behave or you go. For a moment, it seemed like he might explode. His jaw clenched and his hands gripped the edge of the table. But then, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. Whether it was shock, anger, or sheer disbelief, he finally relented. With a huff, he grabbed his coat and stood up. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath as he stormed toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back to glare at her. "You'll regret this." As the door slammed shut behind him, the room fell silent. Everyone had been watching the exchange unfold, and now they erupted into murmurs. Some clapped softly, impressed by Nia's bravery. Others exchanged worried glances, knowing full well who that man was and what he was capable of. Nia exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and unease wash over her. She hadn't expected things to escalate so quickly, but she also knew she'd done the right thing. Standing up to someone like him wasn't easy, especially when he had the power to make her life difficult. Yet, as she returned to her duties, tending to the remaining customers with a smile, she reminded herself of one simple truth. Dignity wasn't something you could buy or sell, and she wasn't about to let anyone take hers away. The next morning, Nia woke up feeling a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, she was proud of herself for standing her ground and refusing to let that man walk all over her. But on the other hand, there was a nagging worry in the back of her mind. What if he actually followed through on his threat? He didn't seem like the kind of person who took rejection lightly. In fact, everything about him screamed entitlement, from the way he carried himself to the smug look on his face when he thought he could buy her off with $100 bill. She shook her head as she got ready for work, trying to push those thoughts aside. "I did what I had to do," she muttered to herself while tying her apron strings in front of the mirror. Still, it was hard not to feel uneasy. The restaurant wasn't just a job, it was her livelihood, her community. She'd been working there for years, building relationships with regular customers and earning the trust of her coworkers. What would happen if he decided to retaliate? When she walked into the restaurant later that afternoon, the atmosphere felt different. Her manager, an older woman named Linda, pulled her aside before she even clocked in. "We need to talk," Linda said, her voice low but urgent. They stepped into a quiet corner near the kitchen, away from prying ears. "What's going on?" Nia asked, though deep down she already suspected the answer. Linda hesitated, fidgeting with the clipboard in her hands. "You know who that guy was last night, right? The one you kicked out?" Nia nodded. "Yeah, I figured he wasn't just some random jerk. So what?" "He's rich. Big deal." "It is a big deal," Linda replied, her tone heavy with concern. "He's been posting stuff online, bad reviews, accusations, calling us unprofessional. He tagged the restaurant in every single post, and now people are talking. Some of them are even canceling reservations because of it." Nia felt her stomach drop. Sure, she'd expected him to be angry, maybe even throw a tantrum or two. But this was something else entirely. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was affecting everyone at the restaurant, people who depended on their jobs just as much as she did. "I'm sorry," Nia said softly, guilt creeping into her voice. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Linda sighed, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't apologize. You handled yourself perfectly. That guy was completely out of line, but—" She trailed off, clearly struggling to find the right words. "Look, I've got pressure from upstairs. The owner is freaking out. If this keeps up, we might lose business, and if we lose business, well," she didn't have to finish the sentence. Nia understood exactly what she meant. Layoffs were practically inevitable if things didn't improve soon. And while Nia knew she couldn't control what that man chose to say or do, the weight of responsibility still pressed down on her chest. Later that day, as Nia served tables and tried to focus on her work, she couldn't ignore the tension in the air. Her coworkers shot her sympathetic glances, but there was also a hint of unease in their expressions. A few of them gathered around during a lull in service, whispering nervously about what might happen next. "He says you were rude to him," one of them whispered, holding up her phone. "Look at this," he posted screenshots of fake text pretending. "You insulted him." Nia leaned over, scanning the messages. There were laughably obvious fabrications, full of misspellings and awkward phrasing that no real person would ever use. Yet, judging by the comments section, plenty of people were buying into it. Dozens of strangers piled on, accusing her of being unprofessional and racist. One comment stood out: "Why should we support a place that treats white customers poorly?" Her heart sank. Racism wasn't new to her. She'd faced it countless times throughout her life, but seeing it play out so publicly stung more than she expected. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the assumptions people made based on skin color, stereotypes they clung to without question. As the hours dragged on, the situation only worsened. More negative reviews poured in, many of them clearly written by trolls or bots. Social media blew up with hashtags attacking both her and the restaurant. Even local news outlets picked up the story, framing it as a he said, she said controversy. Reporters camped outside the restaurant, shoving microphones in employees' faces and asking loaded questions designed to stir drama. By the end of her shift, Mia felt drained. She trudged home, replaying the day's events in her mind. Was it worth it? And standing up for herself caused more harm than good? As much as she hated to admit it, doubt began creeping in. That night, sitting alone in her tiny apartment, Nia scrolled through her phone, reading article after article about the incident. Each headline seemed worse than the last. Some painted her as a hero, praising her courage for confronting a powerful man. Others vilified her, twisting the truth until it barely resembled reality. Comment sections devolved into arguments, with strangers hurling insults and accusations at each other. The sheer volume of hate directed at her was overwhelming. For every supportive message telling her to stay strong, there were 10 hateful ones calling her names or questioning her motives. At one point, someone posted a photo of her walking home, zoomed in close enough to make her uncomfortable. How had they found her? Was she safe? Tears welled up in her eyes as she stared at the screen, her hands trembling slightly. She wanted to turn it all off, to shut out the noise and pretend none of it existed, but she couldn't, not completely. Because somewhere beneath the fear and frustration, a small part of her refused to give up. She remembered something her grandmother used to tell her when she was younger. They can try to tear you down, but they'll never break your spirit unless you let them. Those words echoed in her mind now, grounding her in a moment of clarity. No matter how bad things got, she wouldn't let anyone take away her dignity, not him, not the trolls, not anyone. With renewed determination, Nia set her phone aside and grabbed a notebook. She started jotting down ideas, ways to fight back without stooping to his level. Maybe she could reach out to journalists willing to hear her side of the story. Or perhaps she could rally her coworkers and loyal customers to counteract the false narrative spreading online. Whatever she did, she knew one thing for certain. Giving up wasn't an option. As she wrote, a faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Tomorrow was another day, and she wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, Nia woke up with a strange sense of anticipation. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the restless night she'd had, tossing and turning as her mind replayed every detail of the past few days. Or maybe it was the nagging feeling that something big was about to happen. Whatever it was, she couldn't shake it off. She got ready for work like usual, tying her apron strings tight and slipping her notepad into her pocket. But when she walked into the restaurant, there was an unfamiliar energy in the air. The staff huddled near the hostess stand, whispering urgently. When they noticed her approaching, they fell silent, their eyes darting toward her before quickly looking away. "What's going on?" Nia asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. One of the servers hesitated before answering. "There's someone here." "Asking for you." Nia frowned. Asking for her? Who would come looking for her at the restaurant? Her first thought was the billionaire jerk from the other night. Had he decided to show up again, trying to intimidate her further? But then she saw the man sitting alone at a corner table. He was older, dressed in casual clothes that somehow still screamed wealth. His posture was relaxed, but his sharp gaze gave him away. He wasn't just another customer. Her manager, Linda, appeared beside her. "He says he wants to talk to you," she whispered. "Alone." Nia's stomach tightened. This didn't feel right. Still, curiosity outweighed caution. She squared her shoulders and approached the table, forcing a polite smile. "Can I help you?" The man looked up, studying her carefully. There was something familiar about his face, though she couldn't quite place it. "You're Nia, correct?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "Who's asking?" He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands on the table. "My name is Mr. Presley, Evan Presley Sr." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Presley, as in the father of the man who had caused all this chaos. For a moment, Nia froze, unsure how to react. Was this some kind of trap? Had he come to defend his son or make things worse? "I know what you're thinking," he continued, almost reading her thoughts. "But I'm not here to argue or lecture. I just want to hear your side of the story." Nia blinked, caught off guard. She hadn't expected that. Slowly, she pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. "Okay," she said slowly. "What do you want to know?" Mr. Presley listened intently as she recounted everything, the inappropriate comments, the $100 bribe, the threats after she kicked him out. She didn't sugarcoat anything, laying bare the frustration and fear she'd felt during the encounter. To her surprise, he didn't interrupt or dismiss her. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then he sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for my son's behavior and for the trouble he's caused you." Nia stared at him, stunned. An apology? From a billionaire? It felt surreal. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked bluntly. "What do you want?" He smiled faintly, as if he appreciated her directness. "I came here because I wanted to see for myself who you are. My son isn't known for handling rejection well, especially when it comes to women. But hearing your story, seeing the way you carry yourself, I have to say I'm impressed." Nia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Compliments from someone like him felt strange, almost too good to be true. "Thanks, I guess," she muttered. "But I don't understand what any of this has to do with me." Mr. Presley leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Here's the thing. I built my company from the ground up, and one of the things I value most is integrity. You stood up to my son not because you had to, but because it was the right thing to do. That takes courage. And frankly, it's something we could use more of in our organization." Nia's heart skipped a beat. Was he offering her a job? Before she could ask, he clarified, "We've been working on diversity initiatives at Presley Tech, but progress has been slow. I think you could bring a fresh perspective, someone who understands fairness and respect firsthand. Someone who knows how to challenge the status quo." She sat there, speechless. This wasn't what she'd expected when she woke up this morning. A part of her wanted to jump at the opportunity. It was a chance to escape the toxic environment the restaurant had become, to prove herself in a new arena. But another part of her hesitated. Could she trust him? Would working for his company mean dealing with his son again? I don't know, she admitted after a moment. This is a lot to take in. I understand, Mr. Presley said, his tone softening. Take your time. Think about it. All I'm asking is that you consider the possibility. With that, he stood up, leaving behind a business card on the table. Call me if you're interested, he added before walking away. Just like that, he was gone, leaving Nia sitting there, staring at the card in her hand. Later that day, as she mulled over the conversation, her coworkers bombarded her with questions. What did he say? Did he offer you money? You gonna quit and go work for him? Nia laughed nervously, shaking her head. I don't even know yet, she admitted. It's tempting, but I don't trust rich people. They always have ulterior motives. Her best friend at the restaurant, a fellow server named Tasha, raised an eyebrow. Yeah, but this guy seemed different. Maybe he actually means it. Besides, wouldn't it be nice to stick it to Junior by taking his dad's job offer? Nia smirked despite herself. There was a certain poetic justice to that idea. Still, she couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. What if accepting the offer only made things worse? What if it turned out to be some elaborate scheme to humiliate her further? That night, lying awake in bed, Nia replayed the conversation in her mind. Mr. Presley's words kept echoing in her head. Courage, integrity. Those were qualities she prided herself on, traits she'd fought hard to maintain despite the challenges life had thrown her way. If nothing else, maybe this was a chance to turn the tables to show the world that standing up for yourself doesn't have to end in defeat. By the time morning rolled around, she'd made up her mind. She picked up the business card, dialed the number, and left a voicemail. Hi, Mr. Presley. It's Nia. I'd like to hear more about the position. As she hung up the phone, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbled inside her. She didn't know where this path would lead, but one thing was certain. She was ready to face whatever came next. Nia's first day at Presley Tech felt surreal. She walked into the sleek, modern office building with its glass walls and polished floors, feeling completely out of place in her modest outfit. Everyone around her seemed to radiate confidence, dressed in sharp suits or trendy business casual attire. Conversations buzzed in hushed tones about stock prices, quarterly reports, and tech jargon that went right over her head. It was a world she'd never imagined stepping into, let alone thriving in. Her initial meetings were overwhelming. Mr. Presley introduced her to the leadership team, explaining her role as the head of diversity initiatives. Some executives nodded politely, while others wore thinly veiled expressions of skepticism. One woman even whispered loud enough for Nia to hear, "This is just PR damage control." Nia forced a smile, pretending not to notice. She knew proving herself wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to show them she belonged. The real challenge came when she started digging into the company's culture. Despite its progressive branding, Presley Tech had deep-rooted issues. Employees from marginalized backgrounds spoke candidly during focus groups, sharing stories of microaggressions, unequal opportunities, and being overlooked for promotions. Many admitted they feared retaliation if they spoke up. Hearing their struggles hit close to home for Nia, it reminded her of all the times she'd been dismissed or underestimated because of her race and gender. But instead of letting frustration consume her, Nia channeled it into action. She worked tirelessly to design programs aimed at fostering inclusivity. She pushed for mandatory bias training, revamped hiring practices to attract diverse candidates, and created mentorship opportunities for underrepresented employees. Her ideas weren't always welcomed. Some higher-ups resisted change, claiming it would disrupt productivity or cost too much money. But Nia stood firm, reminding herself why she took the job in the first place. Meanwhile, Evan Jr., or Junior, as his father called him, wasn't taking the situation lightly. When news broke that Nia had joined Presley Tech, he flipped out. How dare she waltz into his family's empire after embarrassing him publicly? To make matters worse, the media ate it up, framing her hiring as a bold move toward accountability. Articles praised her courage, calling her a symbol of resistance against toxic privilege. Junior lashed out on social media, posting angry rants accusing his father of favoritism and accusing Nia of manipulating the narrative. He claimed she was using her victim status to climb the corporate ladder. His followers, many of whom were young men who idolized his playboy lifestyle, jumped on board, flooding comment sections with insults aimed at Nia. At first, the negativity stung. Nia spent hours scrolling through hateful messages late at night, her heart sinking with each new attack. Some accused her of lying about the restaurant incident, while others mocked her qualifications, saying she didn't deserve to work at a prestigious company like Presley Tech. For a moment, she wondered if she'd made a mistake accepting the job. Was it worth enduring this kind of scrutiny? Then something unexpected happened. People began defending her. Former employees of Presley Tech came forward, sharing their own experiences of discrimination within the company. Customers rallied behind her, praising her integrity and resilience. Even celebrities and activists joined the conversation, amplifying her message of fairness and equality. The tide was turning, and for the first time, Nia realized she wasn't alone in this fight. As weeks turned into months, Nia's efforts started paying off. The program she implemented gained traction, earning praise from both employees and industry leaders. Productivity improved as teams became more cohesive, and employee satisfaction scores skyrocketed. Slowly but surely, the company's reputation began to shift from a symbol of unchecked privilege to a beacon of progress. Of course, Junior wasn't about to let her succeed without a fight. He launched a smear campaign, spreading rumors that Nia was embezzling funds and sabotaging projects. He even hired private investigators to dig up dirt on her past, hoping to uncover something scandalous. But every attempt backfired. The investigators found nothing incriminating, and his accusations only served to highlight his desperation. One particularly memorable incident occurred during a company-wide town hall meeting. Junior showed up uninvited, storming onto the stage, where Nia was presenting her latest initiative. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" he sneered, glaring at her. "Walking around like you own the place." The room fell silent, everyone watching nervously. Nia took a deep breath, steadying herself before responding. "Actually," she said calmly, "I do work here. And unlike you, I earned my position by contributing value, not throwing tantrums." The crowd erupted into applause, cheering her on as Junior stormed off, red-faced and humiliated. From that moment on, his influence within the company dwindled. Even his closest allies distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with someone whose behavior had become increasingly erratic. Behind the scenes, tensions between Junior and his father reached a boiling point. Mr. Presley had grown weary of his son's antics, realizing how much damage he'd caused not just to Nia, but to the company's reputation as a whole. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he pulled Junior aside for a serious talk. "You've had every advantage in life," Mr. Presley said sternly, "yet you squander it on selfishness and arrogance. Do you have any idea how hard people like Nia have to work just to get half the opportunities you've been handed?" Junior scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Oh, please. Spare me the lecture. You're just mad because she makes you look good." "No," Mr. Presley shot back, his voice firm. "I'm mad because you make us all look bad. If you can't learn to respect others, and take responsibility for your actions, then maybe it's time you step away from this company." It was a harsh ultimatum, but it struck a nerve. For the first time, Junior seemed shaken. He sputtered, searching for a comeback. But no words came. Instead, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Despite the drama, Nia continued to rise. Her name appeared in headlines alongside phrases like trailblazer and changemaker. She gave interviews, wrote op-eds, and spoke at conferences, using her platform to advocate for systemic change. People admired her not just for her accomplishments, but for her authenticity, for refusing to compromise her values. Even when the odds were stacked against her, by the end of the year, Nia had transformed Presley Tech in ways no one thought possible. What had once been a symbol of elitism was now celebrated as a model for inclusive workplaces. And through it all, she remained grounded, remembering where she came from and why she fought so hard to get here. As she looked back on everything she'd overcome, the harassment, the backlash, the doubt, she couldn't help but smile. Life hadn't given her an easy path, but she'd carved one out anyway. And she wasn't done yet. The day of the big industry conference arrived, and Nia woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. This wasn't just another event. It was her chance to share everything she'd learned over the past year with some of the most influential people in tech. Her keynote speech was titled Asterisk, From Resistance to Resilience, Building a Better Workplace, Asterisk, and she'd spent weeks preparing for it. She wanted to make sure every word resonated, not just with those in the room, but with anyone watching. Online. As she got ready, slipping into a tailored suit that made her feel powerful yet approachable, she thought about how far she'd come. Just over a year ago, she was working long hours at a restaurant, wondering if standing up to someone like Junior would cost her everything. Now, here she was, stepping onto one of the biggest stages in her field. It was surreal, but also deeply satisfying. When she arrived at the conference center, the energy was electric. Hundreds of attendees milled around, chatting animatedly about innovations, trends, and challenges facing the industry. Cameras lined the walls, capturing every moment for live streams and social media. Reporters lingered near the entrance, eager to grab sound bites from speakers as they entered. Nia spotted a few familiar faces, colleagues from Presley Tech, friends who had supported her through thick and thin. But one person stood out among the crowd. Junior. He stood near the back of the auditorium, his arms crossed and his jaw clenched. His presence sent a ripple of unease through Nia, but she refused to let him derail her focus. She squared her shoulders and reminded herself why she was there, to inspire change, not to engage in petty drama. Still, seeing him brought back memories of all the obstacles he'd thrown her way. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. What if he tried to sabotage her speech? What if he caused a scene? Pushing those thoughts aside, Nia took her seat near the front row, listening intently as other speakers delivered their presentations. Each talk built anticipation for what was coming next, and when her name was finally announced, the room erupted into applause. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to the podium, smiling warmly at the audience. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I want to start by thanking you all for being here today. We gather at conferences like this because we believe in progress, not just technological progress, but human progress. And that's what I want to talk about today, how we can create workplaces where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to succeed." The room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. Nia spoke passionately, weaving personal anecdotes with lessons she'd learned along the way. She talked about the importance of accountability, sharing stories of employees who had been silenced or sidelined because of systemic biases. She highlighted the steps Presley Tech had taken to address these issues, Emphasizing that meaningful change required more than good intentions, it demanded action. But then, midway through her speech, something unexpected happened. Junior suddenly stood up, his face flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, pointing at Nia. "You're lying. You manipulated my father into giving you this job." Gasps rippled through the audience. Some people turned to look at him, while others whispered furiously among themselves. Nia paused, gripping the sides of the podium tightly. For a split second, she felt a pang of panic. Would this be the moment that unraveled everything she'd worked so hard to build? Before she could respond, a figure rose from the front row. It was Mr. Presley himself, calm but commanding. He stepped forward, addressing the room. "That's enough," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. "My son's behavior is unacceptable, and it has no place here." The room went silent again, all eyes now on him. Junior looked stunned, clearly unprepared for his father to confront him publicly. Mr. Presley continued, his tone unwavering. "Nia earned her position through hard work, integrity, and a commitment to making our company better. If anyone doubts that, they need only look at the results she's achieved." His words hung in the air, heavy with authority. The audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Junior sank back into his seat, defeated. Nia exhaled slowly, grateful for the support but determined to finish what she'd started. With renewed confidence, she returned to her speech. "Thank you," she said softly, acknowledging Mr. Presley before turning back to the audience. Moments like this remind us why the work we do matters. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen without resistance. But I truly believe that when we stand together, when we refuse to settle for anything less than fairness and respect, we can create a world where everyone has a seat at the table. Her closing remarks were met with a standing ovation, the kind that sends chills down your spine. People rushed to congratulate her afterward, shaking her hand and asking for selfies. Reporters swarmed her, eager to capture quotes for their articles. Through it all, Nia remained composed, humbled by the overwhelming response. Later that evening, as she prepared to leave the conference center, she received a message from Mr. Presley. "Well done," it read simply. "Proud of you." She smiled, saving the text as a reminder of how much she'd accomplished and how much further she still hoped to go. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from the conference dominated headlines. Junior resigned from the family business, unable to recover from the public humiliation. Rumors swirled about his future plans, but ultimately he faded from the spotlight. Meanwhile, Nia's star continued to rise. She became a sought-after speaker and consultant, helping companies around the world implement diversity initiatives modeled after her success at Presley Tech. Looking back, Nia realized the journey hadn't been easy, and it probably never would be. There would always be people who doubted her, who tried to tear her down or diminish her achievements. But she also knew she wasn't alone. She had allies, mentors, and a growing network of supporters who believed in her vision for a better future. One crisp autumn morning, as she boarded a helicopter provided by Mr. Presley to visit a new branch office, Nia gazed out at the sprawling city below. Skyscrapers stretched toward the horizon, their windows glinting in the sunlight. Somewhere down there was the little restaurant where it all began, the place where she first decided to stand up for herself, no matter the cost. A small smile tugged at her lips as the helicopter lifted higher, carrying her toward new adventures. Life hadn't given her an easy path, but she'd forged one anyway. And as she soared above the clouds, she knew this was only the beginning.